On the final day of the regular season, the Clippers and Warriors played an instant classic. This game will likely go down as a James Harden game, but there was someone else, not Kawhi Leonard, who played a major role. A player who helped turn this into an incredible chess match. For those that watched, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard combined for 71 points, but the biggest problem the Warriors had was actually guarding Ivica Zubac. While Draymond Green is one of the best defenders, there's only so much he can do against someone this big. So the Clippers' game plan was to get him in the post. That then forces an immediate double, and Harden now has a very clean step back three. Next possession, Zubac has an even smaller matchup, the Warriors then have the double, and Chris Dunn makes them pay. For the most part, these post-ups generated really good shots. With there always being two to the ball, the Clippers had a good matchup to attack and capitalized. But the biggest headache for Golden State was the Clippers' isolations. The Clippers run the second most in the NBA, and they benefited a ton from Zubac just being in the dunker spot. With Zubac just there, the Warriors' bigs had to figure out when they could really help. With the ball handler driving down the lane, the instinct is to help, but that could then open up either a lob or an offensive rebound. This was the challenge all game. Looney wants to at least look like he's contesting, but that's enough for Zoo to move him out of the way and put it back in. This is something that anyone can run. The Warriors are rotating back and leave Chris Dunn because he can't shoot, but he just drives in, and after the ball ping-pongs around, Zoo has another easy shot at the rim. As the Clippers realized how great the isolation was working, they absolutely spammed this in the third quarter. With the Warriors continuing to go small, each guy took turns going at the Warriors guards. As long as Butler wasn't the primary defender, they had a pretty good chance at getting downhill. In these situations, the Clippers almost want Draymond to be at the rim. That sounds weird to say, but he's essentially neutralized because he's worried about Zubac. As a result, these lanes were wide open, and Harden benefited the most from all this space. When Zubac went to the bench, the Warriors could be way more aggressive on Harden and Leonard. With Simmons at the 5, he's not going to be a vertical threat, and no one's worried about him looking at the basket. So in these isolation situations, the Warriors would bring two to the ball, and Kawhi had a hard time finding the open guy. When Simmons came back in the third, Steve Kerr threw in a 1-3-1 zone. So now that driving lane is completely clogged up, the ball can only move around the perimeter, and we see a much better contest. The Warriors then took it a step further by doubling Harden in that zone. Again, Simmons barely looks at the rim, so they know he's going to pass it and it rightfully gets deflected. With multiple guys at the top of the zone, James Harden couldn't get dribble penetration, so when Ty Lue put Zubac back in the game, the Warriors tried it again. That driving lane is a bit narrower, and Payton does enough to disrupt Harden at the rim. But after a timeout, the Warriors try to give another look. They're back in man, and after Curry switches, Butler immediately comes to double. Notice that Podziemski goes to Dunn, so Kawhi has to make this cross-court pass. It gets to Powell, and he navigates around the defense to finish at the rim. This doubling ended up working against the Warriors. By easily conceding that switch, Butler puts himself in a position where he has to help. Kawhi gets the ball to Dunn this time, and he floats it in. Now, let's fast forward a few minutes. The game is tied, and the Warriors come out with a 1-2-2 zone. Chris Dunn isn't really used to handling the ball, and Curry telegraphs that pass. So, after a Warriors score, they try that 1-2-2 zone again. This time Kawhi's handling the ball, and Dunn finds a soft spot in the corner. That forces Draymond Green to slide all the way over, and Dunn's pass puts the Warriors in extreme rotation, and Powell finishes nicely again to tie the game at 105. Just a few minutes later, Curry knocks down the 3, and the Warriors are on the brink of securing a playoff berth, and that's where we see their next wrinkle. Golden State looks like they're back in that 1-2-2 zone, but once Harden throws it, the Warriors rotate like it's man. So once Harden gets it back, he drives immediately, and it's that same ISO that killed the Warriors for 3 quarters. After a Warriors miss, they go back to a more traditional man defense. With Dunn going to the baseline, Curry thinks that he's free to double, but that's when Dunn sneaks behind and he makes the Warriors pay, which leads us to the final tactic. To begin overtime, notice that Jimmy Butler's matchup with Zubac and Draymond Green on Kawhi. The reason is, he had just defended Kawhi pretty well on the final possession in the fourth, and he actually does a pretty good job on him, so Harden has to ISO, and you'll see Butler come just a tad earlier to make Harden give it up, and the Warriors close out for the rebound. The Clippers struggled more when it was in Kawhi's hands. Because he's not as fast, that dribble penetration is less likely and can keep everything in front. So they put it in James Harden's hands instead. With that left side open, that's an easy drive, and Butler comes a little too late with the goaltend. After a Warriors basket to cut the lead to 2, the ball's put back in Kawhi's hands, and as he drives, Butler comes earlier this time, and Kawhi doesn't get anywhere near the rim. Despite banging knees, the Warriors have a chance to tie the game, and you know the rest.
Here, here's Curry, doubled, fires to Payton. Oh, underneath, Green, open, Green, missed the layup, rebound, Zubac.
After one miss at the free throw line, the Warriors ended up having a chance to tie the game, but they hold Steph so he doesn't have a chance to shoot, and Buddy Hield ends up taking a decent look and misses, which sends the Clippers to the playoffs. In a great regular season finale, Harden and Kawhi will rightfully get the credit for dominating this game, but it was Ivica Zubac that ended up giving the Warriors a ton of problems. He scored 22 points and grabbed 17 rebounds in the process, and more importantly, ended up with a plus-minus of 13, while Ben Simmons was at a whopping -11 in just 11 minutes. A lot of the Clippers' hopes are dependent on Kawhi's health, but Zubac has quietly been an all-NBA player this season and will be a big factor as the Clippers head to the playoffs. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. If so, please like and subscribe. Appreciate all the support, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.